Today I've got Matty Mullins with me. Matty, at this point, you might be the busiest man in alternative music business. I mean, does it feel like that for
Ooh,
you?
I guess I don't have the inside scoop on enough of the other people's schedules to really make that claim, but I would say it is definitely the busiest season of my life and is requiring a lot of time management and prioritizing certain things over others. It's definitely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously alluding to the fact that you're now doing live stuff with Amberlin, and then obviously Memphis May Fire might or not might is going to be releasing a new album soon, and so I'm imagining at some point you'll be touring on that as well. So at this point, like it's not like you probably have like some sort of other like non-music side gigs. Like music's got to be like full time. Like that's how you're paying the bills, right?
Yeah, it has to be everything right now. Like with one band, especially with kind of how the trajectory of Memphis was, I was able to dabble in some side ventures and things, but it's just like now the way that it was last year is Amberlin and Memphis tours right back to back, and it'll be the same way this year as well. So it just has to be the only focus, man. And
Right.
it's cool, I'm stoked. But I needed to like put instead of putting things on the back burner, I needed to be like, all right, those things are gone. This is,
This is
the
what you're doing
music is
now. Yeah,
everything. So yeah.
I get it. That's gotta be fun. I mean, everybody, like every kid that's wanting to maybe start a band, like their dream is to like be able to do that full time at some point. And especially with the music world the way it is, like even big bands, a lot of times like artists are having to have like other side things in order to like supplement income and be able to pay the bills. So it's gotta be really cool. Like you're actually in a position where you are able to dedicate all of your time and energy musically because that like you've got like enough going on with that it is able to pay the bills. Like that's got to be something really cool because like not a lot of musicians, especially in today's like music economy, can say that.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's 15, 16 years in the making. If anity else was like, "Hey, I want to be rich," I certainly would not recommend
This is not the route
this
to go.
path, you know what I mean?
It's like
It's
Bitcoin might be a better route at this point.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, no, I'm grateful. It's really cool. I mean, you 10,000 hours, man. It's real. You put in the time, put in the effort, and if you're willing to make the sacrifices, you can turn literally anything into a career if you want to
Right.
put enough time and energy and effort into it. So
Knowing that you're going to be gone a lot this year from home, like, is that something you have to emotionally kind of prepare yourself for? That, like, there very well could be like a number of months that you're not actually sleeping in your bed, like your home bed. Like, that's got to be. I don't know about. I've never been gone that long, but I would imagine like that's got to be something, especially knowing that it could be what like maybe 6 months of this year that you're going to be away from home, right?
yeah. Last year was the same. It's not so I went through seasons where I would just like ignore it, right? Like try to just
Mm.
like not even think about it, and then you get to a point where you're just like, man, why am I so drained? Why do I feel so disconnected? Now it's more so, it's not like the situation changes, but you just staying present and focused on the moment, not thinking about, when tour is going to be over to get home, but thinking about how thankful you are for each and every single day that you get to do what love is really important. And just, like rolling with the punches, going with the flow and not thinking about the next day, but really just making everything about that day. That's the newest thing that I'm practicing and
Mm.
trying to get better at. But yeah, I mean, being present, being grateful, gratitude is, man, it is the most important part of loving and being thankful for anything is just like focusing on what it is that you are thankful for, what you do have, not the things that you don't have and not the things that
Hmm.
you're missing out on. And it's just a mindset, man. Everything is a mindset.
I love that. What's like a maybe a little thing when you're out on tour for that long that at some point you're like, I absolutely hate this part of touring. Like maybe it's just a little thing. Like I would imagine just being away from home is tough, but like a little thing. Like for me, like I live at home or whatever, and the thing that I hate every single day is I don't have one of those garbage disposals in the sink, and I have to pick the food out like with my
Oh wow.
hands, right? Like
Yeah.
I would imagine like a lot of people have that, right, where they've got like the faucet stop or the drain stop thing, and
Yeah.
to pick that out is like the thing I hate about existing every day. That's the one thing that I'm like, if I could eliminate that from my life, like my life would be great. Is there like a little thing just in terms of touring like that where you're just like, I wish this was not a part of touring, but I got to deal with it every day?
Yeah, other people's cleanliness or lack thereof, right? Like, you're for me, my environment.
You can name names, by the way, like throw somebody under the bus. I'm all about this.
For me, my environment is directly related to my mood and my mindset. And so, like I've said this in other interviews, but I think it's just for anybody in life that has a hard time. If you feel like everything in the world is constantly being thrown at you and you cannot handle it, I would encourage you to make your space clean, make your space
Mm,
organized, because if you start the day off and you feel like you have a grasp on what you can control, it makes it so much more digestible for things to get kind of thrown at you constantly. And so I do the absolute best I can at being that way on tour, but other people, creative minds, think differently, and some people really kind of feel most comfortable in their own like mess and like shoes on the ground and stuff like that, right? I do not thrive in that, so my wife is exactly the same. She is extremely clean, and organized, and so I love that about being home. But on tour, that's difficult for me for sure.
I totally get that. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way where yeah, I'm pretty clean and organized, and I think a lot of that is I'm fairly convinced my parents like have some mild form of OCD, and
That's
so I'm
awesome.
like I think that like I definitely am not to the level that they're at. Like my dad literally hand washes his cars every single Saturday. Like it's just his like
That's
weekly
so
routine,
sick. And
and
honestly, man,
yeah,
that's discipline. That's
it's
rad.
total
Like,
total discipline. Yeah, and
yeah,
certainly I'm not to that level of being clean and organized, but certainly that rubbed off on me to some
yeah.
degree where I remember like in college like I was always known as like having the cleanest dorm room, and it's like in college especially like every dude's dorm room is just disgusting, and I was the
Yeah.
one dude where you could like actually exist in that space and like girls weren't going to be like ew.
Yeah, dude, honestly, that was when I was really young. I mean, maybe like 7 or 8 years old or whatever. I think I had my first girlfriend. She was coming over to the house, and my mom had said, "Hey, you need to clean your bedroom, otherwise, that's gonna be unattractive." And I was just thinking to myself, like, "What?" And so I like cleaned my bedroom because she was coming over. I remember this, and it felt so good just to have something like a space or something that I was proud of that I could control. So much of life is out of our control, and your environment is one thing that you can control. So yeah, I just can't stress that enough. For me, it's so vital to enjoy my surroundings to the best of my ability.
Is that how Matty Mullins got his wife? Was he just like made his bed one day and she was like, well, no other guy does that for me, so you're the
not
one.
not her, not her. We had a different story, but by the time we met, I definitely was already very clean, which was definitely a plus, I'm sure.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, let's talk about the new album. It's called Shapeshifter. It'll be coming out in March. There's already actually quite a few singles out. It almost feels like most of the album has kind of been released, right? Like I feel like there's like at least like 6 singles out or something like that.
More than not, yeah, yeah. It's 6 or 7 or something. I can't remember either. But yeah,
Yeah, I remember
a lot of the
Yeah, I
songs are
looked
out.
the other day. I'm like, wait, it almost looks like the entire album is out, but not quite.
Yep.
So yeah, love to just kind of hear the story around how this album came about. I know that you guys had an EP just a few years ago, and so this is kind of the more recent music. So yeah, how did this album come about? And yeah, what's the story around that?
Yeah, so we actually haven't put out an EP since like 2009.
Or maybe it wasn't. Was it like a single? Why did I talk with you a few years ago?
Yeah, no, I
Was
was
it
going to
like a
clarify.
remix?
I was going to
Or
clarify that. So, the when you roll out singles the way that we have been, and it's kind of a newer way of
oh,
doing
that's
it,
right.
DSPs will just compile it however they think it's supposed to be compiled. So like as soon as you have
Okay,
5 singles out there, like here's the this EP.
right.
And it's actually not at all. But yeah, we have people all the time that are like, I love your last EP, and I'm like, dang, it's been a very long time. But no, it's actually just like an accumulation of singles that are already out. That's how like Apple Music and Spotify, that's just how
Right.
they can like process their info or whatever. So yeah, it's 7 songs, maybe 6, 7 songs that are out already, and we love this format of releasing songs in a manner where people can digest each song as its own single. You know, every song has its own spotlight, which is really beneficial on, you know, when we're touring as much as we are, and we can kind of roll out a new song or maybe two for every tour that we're doing, and that way it's not so much for people to get all at once, so much new
Hmm.
material. So yeah, it's cool, man. It's been a lot of fun to watch the reactions to each song, and for each song to have its own opportunity to get playlisted and things like that has been really beneficial for us. So yeah, it's cool.
It is. I mean, it's hard to believe that even like 10, 15 years ago, just the way you release music was so different.
Yeah.
Because it was like, an album was like a big thing. So you'd have a whole album cycle. But like now, I mean, you've got some of these songs have probably been out for a little while, where I mean, there's probably a possibility that you've even played a number of these songs live already, right?
Yeah, we started rolling them out. I mean, Chaotic was the first single from the record that we released, and we've played that on multiple tours now. And we've been introducing new ones on every tour that we've done. So yeah, I have all of them. We have not played Shapeshifter, the song, live yet, which will be very sick. But we have not done that yet, and looking forward to doing that on the Shapeshifter tour.
Love it. Love that. Yeah. Was there anything in terms of just like sound, or maybe even for you lyrically, that you were like, hey, I want to try this a little differently with these songs versus maybe prior Memphis music? Like, was there any sort of intention around like, we're going to try to make this a little different in this way?
I don't think so. I mean, I go into tracking, and in the last 2 records, you know, vocals have been recorded here. Shapeshifter, I recorded all the vocals myself completely. And I noticed that when I'm doing that now, I will kind of like discover different things about my voice that I like, things that I don't like, you know, and like just kind of playing with things in a way where if you write a song and you go and you have, you know, a week in the studio to do all the vocals for the whole album, you're thinking about getting the song done to the best of your ability, but you're not like experimenting as much as I have the ability to do now here. And so just in that regard, you know, definitely some exploration, some experimenting, but I don't think I would say I went into it lyrically being like, this needs to be different than everything else. I think I naturally feel like every record has its progression lyrically and its own kind of thing without really having to make that an intentional focus.
Were there like maybe specific themes that you were wanting to touch on lyrically for this album, maybe in comparison to some other albums, like or maybe were there like themes that were coming up for you that seemed to be very common for like, or that they were coming up for you fairly commonly? Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, like what did you, I don't know, maybe every song is like just totally different lyrically from each other, but I'm just curious if there's like some sort of maybe common theme, or at least maybe themes that or stories that you were wanting to touch on.
Yeah, you know, we called the album Shapeshifter because I think so much of the record points back to the things that we struggle with as humans and the faces, the masks that we put on to feel like we become something acceptable or lovable. And I think for me in this season of my life, what's been so important has been to let go of the idea that if I'm not perfect for you, I'm not lovable. And to literally be like, here are all the things that I am struggling with, and to still believe that you're a valuable person when those things are out in the open, when those things become something that you're not hiding, something that's no longer in the shadows, right? And so I really wanted to be very blatantly open and honest so that these songs could be something that other people could relate to as well. I think that the more we talk about the things that we struggle, the more that those things are normalized and the more people realize that they're not alone in what they're dealing with, which has been a very common theme throughout a lot of our records. But this one, especially from addiction to, mental health, to relationship issues and everything being just as raw as possible, which is sometimes uncomfortable. But when you get to that point, that's the only way to really connect with the listener is to be honest, because they want that too,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that seems like the whole point of music is to just like have that honest expression of like who you are, warts and all, right? And like, there's just no other way to make music, at least in my opinion. Like if music is like avoiding that, then it's literally defeating the entire purpose of art.
Yeah, I've definitely been somebody that has avoided that in the past. It feels like there's so much on the line when you're writing a song that is going to be heard, and you feel like you just want to hide. I think it's natural as a human to just want to hide, and I think that's a lie that we believe. I think that the more we test the waters, the more we are like, I wonder if this person will still like me if they know this about me. And then you tell them and they're like, oh yeah, well, I deal with that too. And it's this really beautiful thing where I just think that humans can be more confident in their skin than they believe that they can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I often like think about just like even some of the like important leaders in our world. Like it's just seems, especially like for a lot of the men, like the male leaders in our world, like so many of them are probably navigating their own like issues, but they're like hiding it, right? Like they don't want
Dude.
you to know, right? And like I wonder like how much our world would totally change, especially if like our leaders were willing to be like, hey, like I'm really struggling with this, and like I know it's not. I know that as a leader, I'm not supposed to be vulnerable like this, but I wonder how much of the world would change if, especially if men were like willing to say, you know what, like I'm really struggling with this right now, and yeah, especially for our leaders, I wonder how much would change.
Man, I would hope that we would see that one day. Because I totally agree. I think that the people that other people are looking up to, pretending that they are something that they are not, or that they have it together in a way that they don't, is the most poisonous thing.
Yeah.
Because it gives people the false belief that, oh, what I'm struggling with is actually like really abnormal and something I should hide. I just don't buy into that anymore. Like I want people to listen to this record and feel like they can be honest and relate. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, love that. One of the things I love about this album already is you have maybe arguably my favorite, or what I think to be the most talented vocalist ever in alternative history. And sorry, like I think maybe you're probably like top 5, but like you're not the Christian Lindskog. And so,
Yeah.
Tell me the story of how you get that guy to be involved in this album, because it's so cool that like a Blindside feature is on this. Like Blindside is, I would imagine like you're probably a huge Blindside fan, and so just to like get Blindside and Christian involved in this, like that is so cool. So yeah, what's the story of getting Christian involved?
Yeah, he is like my favorite singer screamer ever, and has been a bucket list guest vocalist of mine for a long time. We just connected over Instagram a few years ago, and then I saw him at Furnace Fest for a split second. But more than anything, it just came down to like the day, I thought we had the song. We had the song that made the most sense for his vocal on it. This was after 4 albums of considering him for, guest vocals. And I just messaged him and I was like, hey, dude, I've got a song. I'd love to have you on it. And we hopped on the phone a few days later and just talked through things in Sweden, obviously. And so I think he wanted to wrap his head around the lyrical concept because just him being Swedish and everything, just maybe a little bit more difficult to understand exactly what I was saying. And it's also like a really dark concept about my own problems with moderation. I have the hardest time with moderation with everything in my life. and if I'm not careful, it will be what kills me, you know? And
Are you saying you might be in 3 bands someday? Like if you don't control yourself?
No, but I am in 2, and that's enough. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's funny. I just, you know, I was explaining that to him, and it seemed like it resonated with him really well. And he recorded his parts in the studio in Sweden. He filmed his parts for the music video in Sweden. It's kind of a cool thing about the time that we're alive today and making music. But yeah, I just hit him up, and he was down. Had it been earlier in our career and there wasn't as much to show for like this being something that would be worthwhile for him, I don't know if it would have worked out. So I think the timing was perfect. And sorry, my dogs.
There. We got an all-out war going.
Yeah, and there's a compressor on this mic too, so you're like they're out the other side of the house. You're like really hearing them bark. We can pause for a second if you want while they finish barking at the post office guy.
They're just, it's like intrinsic to dog nature to just absolutely hate a male person.
They see him every single day because he picks up from our house for On Point, you know, which is still happening for the next like couple days. And every day it's been the same guy for the last 11 years we've been in this house, and they just want to murder him, dude.
I'm sure like they hang out, like they'd like figure it out and be like, oh, this guy's
they'd be
great.
buddies, but they've never gotten to spend any time with the guy. He's the sweetest dude ever. But yeah, anyways, they should be done now.
Okay, I gotta like keep going along this Christian Lingskog kind of trail, just because I'm just like I think again I think he's probably maybe the most talented vocalist I know of. Oh,
sorry.
We are going for it today.
That's so probably loud. Amazon now, which is another really common one.
Yeah, they. Yeah, I like. You mentioned like he might be like your favorite vocalist. I think one of the things about Christian's vocals that I think like set him over the top for me of like just unbelievable talent was he would have these moments, especially like an earlier maybe like Silence and About a Burning Fire era of Blindside, where he would like be in the middle of a note singing it and then it would go into a scream, or vice versa. Like he'd be in the middle of a note screaming it and then go into like it seamlessly in the same syllable sing it. It's just like very few people can actually do that. And is that something that you've ever practiced, or like have you ever been able to figure out like how does Christian do that? Like that to me like seems like something where it's like he must just have like some sort of abnormal vocal cord or whatever to be able to do that.
Yeah, it is something that I mimicked a lot, you know, growing up and tried to emulate. And there's a handful of Memphis songs where you can tell that I'm doing that. It's he is really gifted. I also just love the tone of his voice. It's different than I think anything I've ever heard. Like his actual natural born vocal tone is just cool. Yeah. It's just like a cool sounding thing. But yeah, he's rad, really good dude, and I hope one day we'll have the opportunity to play the song together. It'd be sick.
Oh, that would be awesome. That'd be awesome. Well, I'm super stoked for the album. It's just I know a lot of it has already been released, but it's so great. And yeah, the Christian song, I'm just like this was so cool to get him involved. You know, we don't hear his voice very often anymore in music. I know they maybe, what was it, like 6 years ago or 5 years ago, they released that Gravedigger song, but you just like don't hear his vocals very often anymore. And so it's just always really refreshing to hear him sing again.
Dude, I could not agree more. If anything, like just bringing him into this song was me bringing his voice back to the airwaves so that I could listen to it, you know, like I love that dude, love that band. Yeah,
love it. Well, let's talk about Amberlin. So we'll go part 2 now of bands. What's the story of getting involved with Amberlin? Because I've been a lifelong Amberlin fan, you know, ever since even like when Blueprints initially came out. Like I was a huge fan. How did this? What's the whole story involved in this of how you got involved with, like knowing that Steven was kind of stepping down a little bit, at least from like live stuff. What's the whole story of you getting involved with them?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much just as random and crazy as anybody could imagine it to be. Steven and I had been like internet buddies, but nothing too deep, and maybe spent a total of 15 minutes together ever in person. He asked me to come out to Furnace Fest, and that's the third time I've mentioned Furnace Fest on this podcast.
Seems like an important part of your musical journey.
That was an important day, dude. Yeah. I went out and sang with Amberlin. He had just messaged me and asked if I wanted to come out and do like a quick guest vocal, and I did. Didn't know the rest of the guys. I had like loosely known Christian because I was a big Acceptance fan, and I had seen him at like bars in Tampa and stuff like that. But yeah, he texted me completely out of the blue and was like, hey, I don't know what your future looks like with Memphis, but would you be interested in doing a world tour with Amberlin? That was kind of how the conversation started, was like me just doing a world tour with the band as their singer.
Like that's like you go like 0 to 100 there really quick, because like you're expecting, if you get a text from Steven, you're thinking like, oh, like, hey, we're recording a song, do you want to do guest vocals or whatever, to go from maybe that was your expectation seeing a text message from him, but to then see like world tour, that's got to be like, what in the world, like this has got to be fake.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, just I wouldn't even have thought that he was gonna ask me to do a guest vocal. Like, I thought maybe he just was like in Nashville and wanted to get food. I don't know. But yeah, it was crazy, dude. And I like went downstairs and I talked to my wife and I was like, what do you think about this? And then as I got onto the phone with the rest of the guys in the band and everything, it was pretty clear that everything was still very up in the air. It wasn't one world tour. It wasn't like one quick idea. It was like, we don't know what the future of the band looks like right now. All that we know is that Steven is very committed to his church, to his career, to his family, and he has to prioritize those things right now. So we are, we know for a fact that he will not be touring. We don't know what everything else is going to look like. And, if you want to do this, here's kind of what it would look like. And I had my own, like, things. I was just like, I would never say that yes to any other band. It was a full circle dream come true moment for me. Very cool. These albums like shaped my early music. I wouldn't call it a career experience, I guess. Yeah, dude, it was just wild, like wild. And we have some even crazier, very crazy, very wild, you have no idea news coming here in the next few days for Amberlin as well.
Ooh, okay.
But it's yeah, dude, it's so, it still doesn't feel real. Like, I did 12 weeks of touring with them. We've released music together. All the things that you imagine it's going to take to be like, oh, okay, yeah, like now I'm locked in. It's still like every day, like I'll see Dion, for whatever reason, Dion, his face, I remember watching music videos of them and just thinking he looked so cool, like his hair and the way that it kind of like flipped and everything. And I was just like, damn, that guy's so awesome. And I'll still like wake up, I'm drinking coffee like in the bus and he's sitting across from me and I'm just like kind of like blinking and shaking my head like, what is happening right now? Because I mean, there's just like the professional face you have to put on for the public and for, like for the whole machine to work. But I am very much still just 16 in that bus wondering what's going on and how this is possible. That's very much still me on a daily basis. So.
Well, at one point, Nathan was even 16 and on that bus.
Yeah,
it's kind of unbelievable how young he was when he first got involved with them. It's like,
yeah,
there's no way he graduated yet. He was still doing algebra.
100%. Yeah, I think they started touring when he was like a freshman in high school, real young.
So ridiculous.
Crazy.
That's like prodigy kind of level status. Well, I'm curious, like, it's obviously very much part of this is like touring, and it sounds like you're even, maybe like more involved even with the band. But yeah, I'm just like, it's kind of interesting to think like maybe from your perspective as, vocalist now of Amberlin, would you say like Steven still like is involved in some capacity? Like, or what would you say certainly right now Steven's involvement has been? Like, has he been just like kind of maybe a mentor to you? Is he like actually involved in like a creative process still with Amberlin? Or I'm just curious, like, what for you, like what's the sort of support you're getting from Steven?
I mean, if I'm looking for it, he's definitely there to offer support. We've hopped on the phone a handful of times and just talked, but for the most part, like what the band is doing and what I'm doing as a part of the band is giving him like full space to do what he's doing, like
Mhm.
he didn't step back from the band so that he could still be, like still have all the tasks,
Totally.
that would keep him busy and like away from his family, away from the church and stuff like that. So we're giving him that ability to do everything that he needs to do. As far as like creatively and stuff like that, I mean, it's very much, I've kind of jumped fully into the picture there, and I
Wow.
have no clue like how long that will be, or if it's forever, or if it's a month or whatever. Like, it just, as like wondering as the public is, like, so are the rest of us. And ultimately all that matters is that the band is still alive, they're still touring, the live show is still sick. uh Steven can at any point, whenever he would want to, come back and reclaim his throne. Like, it would make me happy to see him
Mhm.
with this band again, for sure. But I don't know what the future holds. And so what is going to happen and what does matter is that we are working super hard as if this is what it's going to look like forever. And if Steven comes back, then we will have built even more onto that foundation for him to return to. And if he doesn't, this band is still a very exciting project. These other dudes are so freaking talented, and just like, they are full of so much life and music still. It's really cool to see, and it's cool to be a part of.
I really love like the potential direction that this could go, because I've always thought like Amberlin's kind of an interesting band where essentially, at least from like just the instrumentation, has always to me been, especially their earlier stuff, was like really legitimately like heavy stuff, like heavy, I mean, even at times like kind of arguably like post-hardcore kind of like riffs and instrumentation. But Steven's vocals have always like he obviously has that very distinctive kind of soft style.
Yep.
And I've always been really curious to like think like what would Amberlin sound like with somebody who really like could do the gritty kind of edgy vocals. And so, obviously with your background with Memphis, like I'm kind of like, well, now we get to at least see that. And I'm just curious, like, is that something you've ever thought about, like knowing that Steven's vocals are very distinctive and kind of have that really soft tone to them, despite the fact that their instrumentation is like heavy stuff typically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, Steven and I are very different vocalists in that regard. And there is a lot of room to play with aspects of things like that, and the band is definitely stoked on the heavier side of themselves, and could see, going down that road even more in the future. And we'll see. Yeah, I think that's all I can say for now.
Love it, love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I will be seeing you guys here. I don't remember if it's March or April, but I'll be seeing you here in Minneapolis on the Never Take Friendship Personal tour, and that's got to be something for, like, I would imagine you listened to that album when you were a kid, right? Like, it's got to be kind of cool that you get to literally sing for the tour, for the 28th anniversary tour for this album, like an album that I'm sure you grew up with, right?
Yeah, it is like actual psycho level. Like, yeah, it's just as crazy as you think, dude.
Because like, there's
It's
no way like you
wild.
were listening to that album for the first time in 2005 and ever thought I actually would be singing that album with this band 20 years later.
No, dude, never. It's definitely gotten to the point. The Amberlin thing in my life has definitely gotten to the point where, at this point, my involvement in the band is going to be a part of the band's history, which
That's
is
so cool.
insane. Like, it is absolutely insane. And being a part of this tour is, yeah, I cannot describe how important that album was to, my early years, and how much I still love that album, and how crazy it is going to be to sing those songs every single night, to celebrate that record with their fans, because I am the fans. I am the
You're
fan,
right.
right? And so there will be not 1 degree of separation between the crowd and the stage on that tour. I am just as excited as every single one of you.
Right. Well, I was about to say, I'm like, I know there's a level of professionalism that you're able to accomplish where, you're gonna nail all the notes and everything. And also, it's got to be feel like a little weird that you're on that side of the stage and not the other side with all the other fans, like, because like, you know, in a different world, you would be one of those fans, like out, you know, singing to these songs,
Dude,
but not on the stage.
Yeah, this is a tour I would not have missed. This is a tour I would have gone to multiple cities for, you know? So,
Even
yeah.
if you were out on tour, like even if Memphis was on tour, you would like try to find a way to make it work.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of times that makes it easier because you're not in one spot. You're in a different spot every day. So like at some point you get at least kind of close
Right, yeah,
in the routings, and then you're like, oh, I can go to that one. But yeah, I certainly would have wanted to see this show as a fan. Absolutely.
That's so cool. Well, I'm really stoked. Like again, when I saw the announcement a while back about you, you know, sort of getting added to the mix, and kind of knowing that, you know, Steven more or less is taking a step back, and I just was really excited. I'm like, no, you know, especially interviewing you before a few years ago, I was like, I can't think of a better person to fit this role right now than you. And obviously, I've never been in Amberlin. I don't know those guys at all, but I would imagine they also very much knew like you vocally, you're just like how cool and chill you are. Like you just have got to be like the best fit for this band.
It's been a really good fit, and they constantly are really good at showing gratitude for my presence there, which they know that I am equally as excited to be there, you know? But it's been a really cool thing, dude. And I appreciate what you said. It's really great to hear that, because I am constantly in a state of imposter syndrome. I love Steven's voice. I love Steven as a frontman. I love this band with Steven. Any negative comment that anybody posts about me being in the band, I'm usually like, yeah, I feel you. You know what I mean? It's like, I get it, but I'm very honored to be a part of keeping this band alive, because it's a band that deserves to be alive with or without Steven. Truly, genuinely, Joey and Dion and Nate and Christian are dudes that deserve to continue to celebrate the legacy of this band, because they were just as much a part of creating it as Steven was. And so I'm honored to be there, honored to be a part of it. It is psycho, dude. I mean, anything that anybody could ever dream up or make a movie about, it is so that for me. It's insane. And yeah, don't miss the Never Take Friendship Personal 20-year tour. It is going to be sick, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, again, I'm so excited. And yeah, I know I maybe joked at the beginning, but you know, I would imagine it's a lot right now to balance both bands, but I hope you're able to find like the right rhythm in life to just make this work, because obviously, at least for fans like myself, like fans of both bands, like from like myself, we want to see this work for you just in terms of your life, because obviously like seeing you in Amberlin and seeing you in Memphis is like such a cool experience for those of us who really like your vocals.
Thank you so much. And it is awesome. Like the how different the two bands are, getting to express creatively in both of those is a huge gift. And so yeah, I want it to work out just as bad as anybody else. And we're making it work. And Amberlin is working around the Memphis tour schedule. So there's no threat to Memphis at all, to the other members, to our fan base, to anybody. Like, that band is so full steam ahead right now. And this is not affecting that. It's just me being on tour forever is really what it looks like. And I'm well aware that nothing lasts forever. And I'm just choosing to see only the gratitude in this season of like, this is awesome. And I can't wait to look back on how crazy everything was and be like, dang. But right now it just is crazy, and I'm just doing all of it, and it's cool. And I love those dudes. I can't say that enough. And I'm honored to be there. So
yeah, love that. Well, it's gotta be a dream come true. And I'm one of those people, when I see people's dreams like come true, I'm just like, I'm so excited for you. So I'm giddy for excitement for you right now. I just think it's really cool.
That's awesome.
So, well, I think now we're ready for your top five, or at least not, maybe not top five. Maybe you want to like rank it or anything, but 5 guilty pleasure artists. So these are the artists, Matty, that, you know, basically not necessarily that you feel guilty for listening to them, but maybe others would make you feel guilty for listening to them. So what are maybe 5 guilty pleasure artists that you just can't help but enjoy?
I mean, my entire childhood is guilty pleasure artists and artists that I would get made fun of for listening to. I wasn't allowed to listen to anything mainstream or secular, right? And so like my introduction to just like distorted guitars was Reliant K. You know what I mean? It's like,
oh yeah,
it was DC Talk, Audio Adrenaline, Mercy Me, Jars of Clay. Like that was my entire childhood. And my older brother played in a CCM band. And so we would, the family would travel to watch him play. And my sister Amy dated, one of the dudes from Petra, and like all this stuff where it was just, that was my whole life. A lot of people watching this probably won't even know the artists that I just mentioned. And if you do know them, you're probably like, nerd. And then to some of us, it's like, no, like that DC Talk was
that was your entire life.
It was my entire life. It truly was. And it wasn't until like the Tooth and Nail Solid State era that I got into heavy music because I was allowed to listen to it. And then from there, it just grew into this love for like very expressive music that turned into what is now Memphis May Fire. And it's, so yeah, I would say that's my whole life. But the one current example of music that people think is funny or whatever is that I, these days, almost predominantly listen to lo-fi beats. And
that's awesome. Actually, I'm a big fan of that.
It is like parties at my house. It is in the bus 24/7, and people come over and they're like, "Is this like jazz techno? What's going on?" And I'm just like, "Dude, don't hate on it. I love this. I think that I love it because it's an environment enhancer, in my opinion. I think it just makes every environment feel better, but also there's no lyrics. And so it's not my brain like processing someone else's like writing styles and just like the way that the artist brain works. It's like, I often, since this has been my career, have a hard time listening to music without like an analytical brain, which sucks. Like I hate that about myself. And so lo-fi beats is just like, I don't know who that artist is. I don't care who is it. Is it a kid in his bedroom? That's sick. Right. And I just listen to that like all day long. So that's what I listen to. And like Cody from Wage War, he's like one of my best friends in the world. He always comes over and he is like a really good DJ for parties. Like we'll hook him up to Bluetooth and he'll just go away with whatever like the newest, hottest thing is that everybody loves. And so when I put on lo-fi beats, he's like, "Yo, dog, like, hey, this ain't the vibe." And to me, it very much is the vibe.
It's a great vibe.
I love it.
I'm a big fan. I love, especially like in watching like a YouTube video or whatever, and if you hear like a lo-fi beat in the background of somebody's YouTube video, I'm like, I love this already.
Yeah, dude.
I don't know what it is about the lo-fi sound too. I like, it doesn't even necessarily have to be like lo-fi beat kind of stuff, but like just lo-fi in general. There's just something. Maybe it's nostalgic, even though I didn't. Like I grew up in the digital world, but like I don't know what it is about the lo-fi like sound, but there's a band, an indie band that I really love that's a lo-fi indie band called Unknown Mortal Orchestra, and like they
Writing
have
it down.
Unknown Mortal Orchestra, but
Say
they
that
have
5
like
times fast.
it's like very indie vibe, but very lo-fi. Like they have a song called like Swim and Sleep or something. Highly recommend checking that out. But there's just something about that lo-fi sound where it almost sounds like, is this even produced in the same like generation right now? I don't know what it is. I just think it's so great though.
Produced by an alien. Dude, it's so sick, and it really is just a vibe. I know like a lot of the playlists are called like study beats and stuff like that or whatever.
Right.
It's on in our tour bus like 24/7 to the point where someone else will put something on and I'll just like switch it back, and everyone's given up on the fact that is just what it's the playlist and the sound of our bus. That's what it's gonna be. I'm a huge fan.
Love it. Matty, what do you want to plug? Obviously, tours going on, albums coming out here in just over a month. What do you want to plug?
Yeah, keep an eye out for new Amberlin music as well. Obviously, Memphis May Fire Shapeshifter coming March 28th. So excited for the whole record to be out. Even if you're someone who's been listening to the singles as they've come out, listening to the record as a whole and digesting it as a whole is a different experience. I'm really stoked for people to do that. And also watching all the music videos in sequence, and so you can kind of watch the whole album is a lot of
Mm.
fun too. And yeah, new Amberlin music, stuff that nobody knows about yet is coming soon. The Never Take Friendship Personal 20-year tour, the Shapeshifter tour for Memphis May Fire. If you follow me on socials, you're not going to miss a thing. So do that, at Matty Mullins on stuff, and we'll see you guys on the road.
Love it. Love it. Anything else you'd like to plug, Matty?
Dude, just thanks for having me. I'm always, I'm one of the weird ones that loves press. I feel very lucky that anybody would want to talk about anything that I do creatively. And so thanks for having me.
Love it. Love it. Well, I'm super stoked. Again, I'll be seeing you guys here in just like over a month and I don't remember when the Minneapolis tour is. I think it may be at the end of March. So I'll see you then, and super, super stoked for that show, and really excited. I think the album's coming out around that time too. So just really, really excited for all the things that are coming out of your camp, and I'll see you in a month and a half.
Stoked. Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.